Hello there, C-Note here, and welcome back to Dopamine, the show that is all about personal acceptance and creative empowerment. And now I mostly talk to INTPs on this channel, but you're certainly welcome if you're not an INTP to join in on some of these discussions. I will also be doing more videos in the future talking a little bit more about creative stuff, because I am a creative director, a freelance creative director, and have been for a very long time. And so I'm wanting to bring some of those elements into the work that I do. And so I just got done a 5-day event with Personality Hacker, basically running their multimedia setup. So I was doing the music transitions, I was helping them capture audio and video, and then also producing live audio. And having to do this for 5 days straight, not even that, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. So I was in Orlando for almost 10 days, 9 or 10 days, and there was a lot going on. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of energy. And so I really wanted to kind of talk about expanding energy usage and some of the frustrations that come with productivity. Now, I've had a lot of experience, so I've embodied this ability to go to an event and, get up on time and have everything kind of scheduled and worked out. But even then, I still have plenty of challenges because this event is an extroverted situation. It's like 12-hour days. It's a lot of talking. It's a lot of listening. It's a lot of waiting. It's a lot of paying attention. It's a lot of time tracking. And it's a lot of stuff. And so to get to this kind of level of doing these things, it's about building a series of disciplines over time. And some of those disciplines are time tracking. Some of those disciplines are waking up on time and having a little bit of a ritual, preparing ahead of time for things like food and managing budget. And then also being responsive in real time to the needs of my client, of Joel Mark Witt, one of the co-founders of Personality Hacker, and then also doing a little bit of bedside manner with Joel and Antonia to make sure that they're feeling okay, that their energy is good. And at one point, I also had to do a group photo. And so as an INTP, it can be really hard to manage a large group of people to get them all to do the same thing you need them to do. And so the challenge being I wasn't even sure how to even get them to do what I wanted to do. But strangely, once I showed some emotion and frustration in the moment of I actually had people come and help me. So that was really nice. So let me talk about a few of the challenges here. So I mentioned time tracking. Time tracking is one of the biggest challenges that I felt throughout this event in particular, because the cameras that I use, the Canon cameras that I have, and one Nikon, are cameras from a few years ago. And there's this law in I think it's in the EU, where if a camera records for more than 30 minutes, that it's considered a video camera. And because of that, there's a higher tax rate. So a lot of these cameras have a 30-minute limit to kind of dodge the tax rate. And so because I have those cameras, I have to keep track of all of these cameras. I have 3 cameras running plus 2 GoPros. And so I have to go around the room and make sure everything's tracking at the same time and make sure that everything is still running. And occasionally some of these cameras just stop for some reason. Maybe they reached the maxed file size for a video file, or reached the SD card limit, the memory limit. And so I have to keep track of this. And funny enough, it wasn't until the last day that I put a timer on my phone, and I kept kind of doing the TE thing, right? My wife actually reminded me if I was there, I would have told you to do that right away, because that's more of a extroverted thinking tool usage, right? And I don't have extroverted thinking, or I do as my 5th function, and that's something I don't necessarily tap into easily. So it took me 5 days to realize that that's a thing I could do. So time tracking was really hard throughout this event, and making sure that I kind of stayed on task and stayed on schedule. But that's, again, something that was just a matter of experience and a matter of getting into the rhythm and flow. So I kind of relied on my introverted sensing to just get into a rhythm of just for safety's sake, every few minutes, every 10 to 15 minutes rather, I would just get up and have a bit of a ritual and just walk through the cameras and just check everything. Even if it wasn't the 30-minute limit, because again, like I said, things just go awry sometimes and you never know. So I just went around the room and did all of that. The other thing was making sure that the SI part of me, the introverted sensing part that would get into those routines, even the routines of the morning routines that I had, that I wouldn't get too stuck in them, because then I wouldn't be flexible to the moment, right? So I had a few of those routines and those things were reliable, but everything else I had to stay moment to moment. And so I had a schedule for all of the day's events and stuff, but even then, it helps me to not create an ideal vision of how everything should go, because then I would try to stick to that rigid vision. I would overvalue my introverted sensing, and I would end up going in the direction of not adapting to whatever the situation called for, right? So what ended up happening is that I had these few little routines, going to check the cameras, my morning routines, all of that stuff. But as things went along, Joel and Antonia are both extroverted perceivers. They're EPs, an ENFP and an ENTP. So I knew that there's going to be adaptations, there's going to be changes in schedule, or there's going to be some rhythm fluctuations. Now, they're pretty good at staying to their framework because they've done this multiple times, but I knew that I had to be adaptable to potential problems, to students coming up and talking to me, because I had a couple people who have watched the YouTube channel or heard me on their podcast and wanted to talk to me. So I had to be flexible to that situation as well. And I had to do testimonials. So I had to go around and make sure that I connected with some people and pulled them aside to be able to do separate videos later. So I knew I had to be adaptable. And so I didn't want to get too rigid, and I needed to pay attention to when I would get too rigid and try to stick to that ideal. And I think for a lot of INTPs, that ideal, introverted sensing ideal, can get us tripped up. So for example, I was listening to one of the testimonials that I did, and it was with an INTP. Actually, two INTPs did fairly the same thing, where they had an ideal of something they wanted to say, because they kind of like had a little bit of a pattern of what they were talking about. And then they got stuck because they kind of lost what they were going to say, which happens. Like, extroverted intuition is adapting to new information, which means even as you're speaking, new information is coming in and you're adapting to new energies or new things that you're saying, which is why I don't overly plan these videos, because I know that the vibe is going to change as I'm talking, right? And so they got stuck and they were just like trying to capture the thought. They were like, what happened? Where'd it go? And like, you just get stalled by it. But if you're an NE or an extroverted intuition, you're just adapting to the context, you're adapting to the situation, and you're saying like, oh, you know what? Nope, I just got to keep going. I got to figure out another way to put this, or the next thing to do, or adapt to the situation. So when it came to time tracking and routines, I had to make sure that those things were not so rigid that I couldn't be flexible, because I absolutely needed to be flexible. And so I don't remember some of the other things that I said at the beginning of the episode, but I know that time tracking, routines, flexibility, checking in on people's energy. So Joel and Antonia's energy. I basically had to do that sparingly as well. And so what I'm basically alluding to is like knowing your cognitive function energies, knowing the limits, not perceived limits, but like actually pushing yourself to a limit and not assuming that you don't have it. Because most of the time, if I were to think and sit that I couldn't be a person that could provide any kind of bedside manner or context, I would stop myself, because I would assume that I'm incapable, right? But I am actually what is called the harmonizing subtype, which is something Dario Nardi is working on, of denoting subtypes for each personality type. I think on his LinkedIn page, he's got articles and stuff. I'll see if I can find that and put that out there. He's sort of refining it still, so it's not something I'm going to cover just yet until he puts that out there. Or if I can get him on the podcast or on the YouTube channel, that would be great. But the harmonizing subtype is trying to help people find clarity, which is pretty much why I have this YouTube channel and how I'm helpful to people in person. And so for Joel and Antonia, my form of bedside manner to them is making sure that they know that like what they just said has landed to people, or what they've said makes sense, or that there's nothing missing in their content. So I'm not like walking up and just going like, oh, are you guys okay? Like, no, I'm just like, hey, that was great. That sounded really good. You guys hit your cues. You hit all the points. And I don't think anything was missing from that. And then occasionally I give Antonia a hug because she's like one of my best friends in the world. So, check in with that. But overall, it was a really good event and a really good situation. But I understand that as an INTP who has maybe been struggling with some of these various components of your life of routines, maybe getting too much into routines, or not selectively having routines, or not having routines or rituals at all, maybe having struggles with being adaptive and being creative in the moment, and maybe just trying to stick to a specific regimen, or having a hard time with not having enough alone time. Right? That was still a challenge for me. Now, luckily, I was staying with Dario Nardi in the hotel, and he's also an INT. He's an INTJ. And so for the most part, we had like maybe one night where we had a long conversation until like 2 a.m. But otherwise, we were just like, you're an INT, I'm an INT. Let's just turn off the lights, go to bed, like not bother each other. It was great. It was like a dream roommate situation for an event that was like 12 hours a day, right? So I could actually get to sleep. I could get that quiet time and have those moments, right? And I find that most of the time, any introvert stress tends to happen when we're clinging too hard to the introvert side when we're actually in an extroverted situation, right? So it was still hard. And there were moments where like my brain just wasn't working, especially in the evenings, right? I go through an afternoon slump, and then in the evenings, I'm like, I don't have it. I'm just no shot, no chance. I just, nope, don't tell me things right now, or write them down, or email me or something, because in the morning I can comprehend it. Right now, I can't. I'm just on autopilot, and I'm just trying to get through the end of the evening. Even when people came up to me and tried to talk to me about life things or try to ask for advice or anything like that, I was like, I don't have it. Unless it's like an introverted thinking thing and I could use some of that, then I can get a little bit of an energetic hit. But it's a challenge, running long events and stretching the bounds of my extroversion as an introvert, right? So to me, that's like one of the big things is being able to stretch yourself. And that takes time and practice and iteration, right? And so this is also why I created the INTP Productivity Master Quest, because what I think is a major component of being able to work long hours or work the hours you need to work or work at certain contexts is really understanding yourself and your energetic responses. And to understand to kind of get to know and feel when you're missing something, right? To know when maybe you haven't had enough intuition, or maybe when you haven't had enough thinking time, or when you haven't had enough connection time, or when you haven't had enough time just sitting and playing games on your phone, right? And just being passively entertained. That's stuff that does come with experience. But the Master Quest is a way of describing the cognitive functions in a way that helps you understand how you can utilize them for productivity as an INTP, and then also understand these varying contexts of different work situations to adapt to them, how to get feedback, how to connect with others, how to have a boss, a relationship with your boss, or how to be a leader, depending on the context, right? So I can't tell you I can't support your context specifically. That's why all of these videos are vague. Someone just gave that comment recently, and I'm like, I'm not talking to you. I mean, I am talking to you, but I'm like talking to you as if I just met you, right? I don't know your context yet and your situation. So if you can give me a comment below and let me know your relationship to productivity, if you're having any challenges or struggles, that would be a big help. Or if you're in a place where you're like wanting to step up your productivity, wanting to understand your energy usage better, wanting to understand how you can do what I just did, which is like manage and run a 5-day event and also set up over 10 days. Basically had to set up and tear down and design the sets. And we had a lot of things we had to do in 10 days and be around a lot of extroverted energy and around a lot of people. And if you want to learn how you can do that without completely collapsing, then the INTP Productivity Master Quest is really good. Because truth is, in order to get things done, in order to make money, in order to survive, and all this stuff, we got to push a little bit. To expect the world to adapt to us is not necessarily viable or sustainable, right? And so it's just getting frustrated and suffering because someone else is not doing what you expect them to do. Whereas you have the capability and the possibility to learn and grow and adapt yourself. And this doesn't mean being overly self-disciplined or anything like that. It's just tuning your energies to yourself, understanding how you operate and adapting contextually to the varying situations, right? And having fun in the process. Like, it's not about just being miserable and working the job that you hate. Like, I'm doing this because it's a passion of mine. I really enjoy helping Personality Hacker. I like personalities type work. I love personal growth work. I'm so excited when I get to meet one of you in person and be able to have that conversation and facilitate some of your own personal growth and support. So that's why I have the Master Quest. It is a monthly membership where there's additional videos every month. And at request, I can do workshops, but that's not something I'm doing just yet. But if I get enough demand, I'll do it. But there's a great main course there, and there's all sorts of other bonus videos, lots of bonus videos, so many bonus videos, all about various usage of energy, time management, all the work things, routines, rituals, things like that. So with that said, I'm going to get back into my routine, and I've got some work I got to do. I got to start doing the post-production for this project, but I appreciate you being here and watching and listening, being a part of this. If you want to leave a comment below, let me know a little bit about your story. I would certainly appreciate it. And then if you want to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon. And also, if you're on Reddit, on like the INTP threads on Reddit or any INTP Facebook groups, if you could share this video or any of your favorite videos from this channel on there, that would really help me to get some of the word out there, because I want to be able to connect with not only you kind of casually watching on YouTube, but some of the INTPs who are trying to advance their creative growth, to create more open source growth opportunities like this one, right? And that only happens by getting some students and some people to actually join the school and be a part of this and connect with you and be able to tap into some of the deeper content. Because if I can have more intimate connections with some of you, then I can have an opportunity to bring some of that back here and speak to some of the pain points that you're experiencing and give you a path forward, right? So, through the school is the best way to reach me directly. So if you're a student enrolled in one of the courses, that's really the best way to start getting some more contextual, specific help from me. So I hope that makes sense. Take care of yourselves and each other. This has been Dopamine. If you go to dopeintp.com, that's where the courses are. And that's it. Oh, there's also an email list. So if you sign up for that, there's things there about exploring the inner cosmos and understanding creative flow and all of that stuff. But that's for another time as well. So I appreciate you. Take care of yourselves and each other. And I'll catch you next time on Dopamine. See ya.